We'd like to turn now to the Ward 5 race, and we'll begin with the incumbent, Councilor Chuck Phelan. So Chuck, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Colin. Thank you for holding this forum. I think these are great forums, and there's not as many as there used to be, and I think this is good that you're holding it. My name is Chuck Phelan. I'm running for the Ward 5 City Council seat. I am the current Ward 5 City Councilor. This is actually my second time around. I was a City Councilor in Quincy back from 1988 to 1996. At that time, I left when I started a young family, and it was time to take care of the family, and I left the seat at that point. Recently, I retired after 30 years of working for the city as the IT director, and I also served with Norfolk County as their CIO, and I also served with several different jobs that I worked through in government. My last job was with the city of Quincy. When I retired, the Ward 5 seat came open, so I decided to run 2 years ago and get back in and try to deliver something back to the city that had delivered a lot to me and my family. I am married to Michelle Lyden. I have two grown children, Chuck Phelan and Roberta Black, who all live in the city, live in the ward. I'm a lifelong city resident. My father was a Quincy police officer. My grandfather was a Quincy firefighter. And they kind of gave me that it's important to give back to the city, and it's important to work for the city. So I decided to get back in and run again. And in that time, I've had 2 years where I've had to answer a lot of phone calls, hold a lot of neighborhood meetings. In that time, I've listened to a lot of the concerns from the Ward 5 and try to be a strong voice for the people in Ward 5 in the ward. So they're getting the fair share of city services, that things that are required for Ward 5 to get done are getting done. Tons of calls from people, either on developments or anything. And I work very hard to make sure the people of Ward 5 are getting represented, and they have a very strong voice in city government.
Thank you, Councilor Phelan. We'll begin with our questions. The first question concerns transparency. Many candidates stress the importance of improved communication and how they will have greater transparency. Please give one specific example of something new that would improve communication and transparency.
Well, to start off, one of the things that I started when I first started my term was I began doing office hours where people could regularly come in. And for the first 3 months, I was able to do that. And then what happened was the pandemic hit and City Hall was closed down. We had a lot of restrictions that happened. But in that time, one of the things I did, and one of the things I believe that is important for a ward councilor to do, is when there was developments, when there was things going on in neighborhoods, we would still send out and have meetings. Some of them were Zoom meetings. I had several Zoom meetings with different neighborhoods that were concerned about certain issues that were happening in the neighborhood. Sometimes when they were really concerned, we actually met right in the neighborhood. We would meet right around, on the street, and people would get a chance to meet with people. And, that's something I think, that I do, and I do on a regular basis. I've never turned any money back from my mailing budget. I've totally spent it and even gone over sometimes and used my own money to do some of the mailings. But I think it's important to inform people what's going on. As a councilor, as a ward councilor, you kind of live at the zoning board, planning board, conservation commission. There are several different boards that actually make decisions on what happens in people's neighborhoods. So what I try to do and will continue to do if elected is I get notices out to those neighborhoods. We have meetings and we go over what's going on, and I make sure they know long before the thing happens what's happening. And afterwards, when there's a decision made, one of the things that I've always done is I take the decision and mail it back out to the people again and let them know that I'm available. And one of the things I've tried to do is return every call, return every email. One of the things about being retired is I have the time to actually do it. People call and they want to take a walk along Blacks Creek. I recently had a gentleman that wanted to do some trail improvements and ended up meeting neighbors out there, and we took a walk around the Beechwood Knoll area and the Blacks Creek area. And meeting with those people and keeping them informed of what's going on is something I've tried to do through when I was on the council before and even now. And I think I have email. I've done projects where I take everyone's email and then I continue to inform them of what's going on with the project, where it stands and where it's going to go. And I try to make my decisions as visible as possible, tell people what I'm going to do long before the vote comes in. And I've been very upfront and forward with that. So yeah, that's what I do to try to be visible.
Thank you. Our second question concerns the zoning code. If you could change one thing in our zoning code, what would it be and why?
Well, one of the first things I did when I came into office is, after going door to door through talking with all the neighbors, I began to see, and especially in Residence A areas, several short-term rentals. You can call them Airbnb, Vrbo, whatever you want to call them. But several of these places were going into what were neighborhoods. And what was happening was people were going in. It was, a house would go up for, say, 600,000. Somebody would come in because they were going to run a business. They had no intention of using it as a single family. They would go in and put a 700,000 down and outbid any family or any person that was trying to buy that to live in that neighborhood. And they began to become rampant. During COVID, we had incidences where people were having parties. College students were having parties. Police had to clean up, had to clear out streets of over 125 kids having a party, and right in the middle of COVID. So one of the things I did was I actually did bring in a change to the zoning code, which bans Airbnbs in residential zones, in Residence A zones. It does allow in multifamily zones, but they have to go through inspection from the fire department. They have to go through an inspection from inspectional services. There's a lot more restrictions and things put on them. And I think it's a way to protect the neighborhoods. One of the things I've tried to do is protect the neighborhoods. I think when you see development, I have always drawn the line at if it's in a Residence A area, single family area, I'm just against it. One of the things too with the zoning code is sometimes it's not changing it. It's people going for variances, going to the zoning board, planning board, different things, looking for variances. And as far as I'm concerned, the laws that are there in the zoning code are there, and they should be adhered to. One of the things I found very quickly as I became in office is a lot of these are going out for variances, and people being allowed to have denser developments. They're being allowed not to put parking in. There's a lot of things like that have gone on. And one thing as a ward councilor is I have tried to go to those meetings, and I spoke very, very vehemently against them. And I've also alerted the neighborhood, so they also have been able to come in. And a lot of these ones that have tried to come in and go around variances have not been allowed to. And that's something with the zoning code. I think it's constantly looking at it, tweaking it and changing it. I recently introduced something that's still before the council to adjust the table of uses in the zoning code, and that would bar all short-term rentals in Residence A. And that's something I'm very, very passionate about and wanting to do, and that's something I'm going to continue to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Our next question concerns critical race theory. So in your own words, can you define critical race theory as it relates to civic planning or social structures in our city? And the follow-up, do you think Quincy can benefit from this type of thinking? Why or why not?
Well, I think with critical race theory, I think it's important to teach the history that happened. And you teach the history. I know there's been several initiatives before the school committee, which I support. I think you need to teach history the way it was. I mean, if there's things about slavery, you got to say slavery was here. Jim Crow laws, a lot of those laws that went in. But I think sometimes we can get too wrapped up. I think it's what we do on a day-to-day basis in the city, that we make sure the city is a welcoming place for everybody. And I think one of the things we try to do with ordinances, I supported Councilor Palmucci's ordinance when he brought in to set up the exclusionary zoning coordinator and director. I supported the mayor when he brought in to bring in the exclusionary, I'm probably not saying it right, but setting up the committee. And I think those were all very important steps. I listened when we had I have a lot of Asian communities that live in Ward 5. And it's very important for me to keep touch with them, hear what's going on with them and working with them. And, you know, when we had some rallies to stop hate, you know, I've supported those and I've been involved in those. But critical race, I think it's something important to teach. Don't get me wrong. And I think we are trying to use it in planning and government. I know several of my colleagues have been very active on that, and I've been strongly in support of the measures they brought in. So I don't know if I answered it totally correctly, but I think critical race theory is something that's kind of a theory up there. I think it's what you do on a practical level and in your schools, and what you do giving out city services in your police department and all that. I think those are the most important places that the theory can come into actual planning and actually work within the wood.
Thank you. Our next question concerns the budget. As a city council, you will have to make some budgetary decisions. How do you define your priorities on the next year's budget? And the follow-up, how do you intend to balance the needs of the taxpayers with the plans for city growth?
Well, I think it's very important to realize that I always prioritize police, fire, schools, and DPW. I think those are the basic services we deliver every day. And those are the things, you know, you need clean water, you need the sewers, streets fixed, you need the police out there, you need the fire, you need EMS services and all those. So I think those always, in my opinion, get the top vote. But one of the things is there is so many people working in the city, and one of the things that's going to be is there are pay raises, there are health issues, there are things that are going to go up. I think what you have to do is prioritize the budget. I did not support when the mayor brought in purchasing and building a new college for Quincy College. I feel that it's more a regional college now, and it's not really a city college anymore. And I mean, I know that there's been some movement to buy, that the city has bought the building, but still they'll need to come back for looking for a bond issue to build the whole thing. It's something that I am opposed to. I think that's something that we shouldn't be burdening the taxpayers with. Also, in an environmental stand, when they wanted to build a bridge across Blacks Creek, I was opposed on it not only from a fiscal point of view, because although it said $3 million to build it, it was going to be well in the tens of millions of dollars to build that bridge. And I opposed it both on an environmental level, going into a salt marsh and actually doing a number on it. And I also opposed it from a financial issue, because that is something that is going to be picked up by the taxpayers. When you bond, eventually, it might be a couple of years down the road, but people eventually pay for that. So I think as a city council, you have to balance what's coming in. You have to look at all the issues. And I try to look at it and see what's the best for Ward 5, and then what is the best for the city of Quincy. We voted to build a new police headquarters. I think anyone who walked through the police headquarters knew we needed a new public safety building, which is both for police and fire and emergency management. We need those things in place, and that's something that's going to affect everybody in the city. And I think when we do these things, we got to realize, is this good for everyone in the city? Is this something that's needed? You know, I guess sometimes there are needs and wants, and what do we need to do? And I do everything to try to keep the city what taxpayers are to the absolute minimum. And I think we're going to continue to do it. But one of the things is we are in Proposition 2.5, and property values are going up. So that's going to send up your assessment too. So I think we have to be very careful. We have to look at everything that comes in, not always be a yes vote on it. And we have to make some hard decisions. And that's part of the reason why we were elected, is to make those decisions.
Thank you, Councilor. We are at about a minute left. So would you like to make your closing statement now?
Yes. First of all, I'd like to thank everyone. Being a former chairman of the City Democratic Committee, I'd like to thank them for doing this forum. I think it's very important that we get to do these forums and that we get these things out there. And on the other step, I want to ask everyone for their vote. I still have lots of things I want to do in the ward. We're still looking at finishing the park at the Beachcomber site, which was originally slated for a development. And we just had a meeting with the residents down there. We've come up with a passive park that's going to go in there, not only protecting the residents, not only a nice place to be, but also protecting from flooding. So there's a lot of projects that are left to go. that I still want to be part of. The new zoning of Wallace and Center will be coming in, and we'll be looking to revitalize areas in that. And that's something that I would like to do. Continue to represent the people on Hospital Hill, where the building is going on with Foxtrot, continue to meet and make sure that they are doing what they have said they were going to do, and meeting with those residents on a regular basis, which I do monthly. And I'd like to continue to do those projects and see them through in the end. So I'm asking for your vote on November 2nd. And I thank everyone for their consideration and thank the citywide Democratic Party.
Thank you, Councilor Phelan.